Come with me, toy fans.
When the Star Wars toy line first burst onto the scene in 1978, it was an overwhelming success, and the 3 3/4 inch scale adopted for the action figures quickly became the new industry standard. British toy company Palitoy paid close attention to the changing play patterns of young children, so when sales of their flagship toy line Action Man began falling in 1980, the company decided to shrink Action Man down from the larger 12-inch size to match the scale of Star Wars toys. This new range of products, now branded Action Force, was first released in 1982, and the initial launch featured the 12 best-selling Action Man designs, now produced as 3 3/4 inch scaled action figures with 5 points of articulation. To provide a wider range of products, Palitoy also produced a variety of toy vehicles and a large cardboard playset. The new Action Force range was an instant retail hit, so as Palitoy entered 1983, the company saw an opportunity to diversify the range, and a new storyline, which featured in the Battle Action Force comics, united the range into an ongoing conflict with an enemy team commanded by the evil Baron Ironblood. The Action Force was split into 4 new operational units: Space Force for operations above the Earth's atmosphere, Z Force the conventional land army, Q Force for nautical missions, and the Covert Strike Force, the SAS. In this all-new 5-part series, we're going to take a detailed look at each of these Action Force teams, discuss the designs of all the different toys in the range, and provide some insight into how the original designers developed these products while working for the legendary British toy company Palitoy. Hello Action Force fans, and welcome to part 3 of this special series, and in this episode we're going to take a look at the Space Force. As described in the 1983 Palitoy trade catalogue, the Action Force Space Force unit was developed to counter Baron Ironblood's threats to the Earth's satellites, and the Space Force has a superb variety of vehicles and accessories to go with the highly colourful minifigures. Bob Breakin, the manager and lead designer of Action Force, states that when Palitoy's new marketing manager asked the designers to reconceive the Action Force range for 1983, the design team came up with various ideas for the Action Force teams, with the different proposals eventually being slimmed down to 4, with Space Force seeming a more exciting prospect than the Air Force. The first wave of Space Force toys released by Palitoy in 1983 included the Cosmic Cruiser, the Satellite Defense Mini Vehicle, and the Space Force Commander action figure, along with the Space Patroller, the Space Security Trooper, and the Space Force Pilot. And most of these action figures here have been very kindly donated to the channel by my good buddy George Aitken. The Space Force Commander's real name is Captain Charles Chuck Connors, codenamed Sky Raider, and according to his data file, Sky Raider is not a man to be trifled with. Quick decisions and energy to carry them through are his hallmark. The Space Commander is armed with a blue Uzi submachine gun and equipped with a removable officer's cap accessory, and this action figure is dressed in a grey uniform with white sleeves, which bear his Space Force rank insignia, and his outfit also features blue gloves and boots. Completing Captain Connor's ensemble is the Space Force logo, which is printed on the chest of his tunic. All of the Action Force teams needed a logo, and Bob Breakin designed all of these except for the enemy team emblem, which was designed by Greg Hughes. The logos were to be tampo printed very small on the action figures, so the design for each emblem had to be quite simple. The Space Force logo was supposed to be a lightning flash, but Bob says that the more he looks at the emblem, it resembles a pair of mountains. The next action figure in the lineup is the Space Force Patroller. This figure represents a generic Space Force fighting man, which has a really cool looking design with his fully enclosed helmet, although this design does prevent the figure from having any neck articulation. The figure wears a yellow jumpsuit with blue gloves and boots, and is armed with an Uzi submachine gun and a laser rifle, which was taken from Hasbro's Flash action figure from their G.I. Joe A Real American Hero toy line. This laser rifle also features a cable that plugs into the back of the action figure, however collectors should be careful since this cable is prone to breaking off the rifle, which is why I always display mine with the cable unplugged. The Space Security Trooper is a simple recolour of the Space Force Patroller, with the only difference being his jumpsuit is moulded in orange plastic instead of yellow. And while the Space Security Trooper was available on a single figure card back, he also came packed in with a Satellite Defense Mini Vehicle. The Satellite Defense is a small but agile one-man fighter that the Space Force uses for patrolling the Earth's atmosphere. As mentioned in previous episodes, Palitoy had been given very limited tooling funds to adapt the Action Force concept for 1983, so the design team had to be very creative. In a sense, the designers kit-bashed many of these new Action Force vehicles using existing parts, although Bob says that the term kit-bashing was not an expression that they used back in those days. In my eyes, the Satellite Defence mini vehicle could be the poster child for the creative adaptability displayed by the Palitoy design team. Firstly, the main body and chassis of the craft was adapted from 1982's AF9 vehicle that came packaged with the Mountain and Arctic figure. The Satellite Defence also features dual front-mounted laser cannons, which have been copied from the weapon mounted on the rear of Hasbro's Vamp Jeep. Missiles have been moulded into each side of the craft, and although these aren't removable, 2 removable missiles have also been included, and these were taken from 1982's AF5 multi-mission craft. But the most interesting feature appears on the underbelly of the Satellite Defence, with this simulated propulsion unit actually being developed from Kenner's tooling for the Millennium Falcon radar dish. Palitoy have also designed a clever way for the security trooper to mount his rifle while he is piloting his craft and protecting the Earth's satellites from an enemy attack. The final single-carded Space Force figure released in 1983 is the Space Pilot. This figure is very similar in design to the Space Force Commander, although his uniform features a different colour scheme, and while the Space Pilot also carries a blue Uzi, his headgear is different, being equipped with a helmet and visor, another accessory taken from the Hasbro designed Flash action figure. The single-carded Space Pilot figure is codenamed Hot Jets, and note his blue boots. And why is the colour of his boots worth a mention? Well, this figure was recoloured with orange boots and packed in with the Cosmic Cruiser. This repainted pilot figure is called Moon Dancer, and he is the pilot of the Cosmic Cruiser, a sophisticated spacecraft that has been specially designed for the Space Force. Much like the enemy team's Shadow Track vehicle, the Cosmic Cruiser's chassis has also been adapted from 1982's AF5 multi-mission craft. The Cosmic Cruiser is a fast and manoeuvrable spacecraft that features twin impulse antennas and spring-release skids for lunar landings. The vehicle also includes frontal assault sting lasers, but its main armaments consist of twin side-mounted electron beam ionizing cannons, the mould for which was copied from the G.I. Joe rapid-fire motorcycle's 20mm Gatling cannon. The main cockpit is accessed via a hinged canopy, and again, much like the Shadow Track, Moon Dancer can pilot the vehicle in the prone position, or adjust the front seat so that the Cosmic Cruiser can carry a second member of the Space Force in a rear-facing position, which makes me believe that this vehicle's design was somewhat inspired by the Star Wars Snowspeeder. Following 2 years of retail success with the Action Force toy line, Palitoy proceeded with the development of new products for the Space Force for 1984. Up until this point, the biggest threat to the Space Force was Baron Ironblood's laser exterminator, but in 1984, the Baron would acquire his ultimate weapon, the Robo-Skull. So it was essential that the Action Force develop their own vehicle to counter the threat posed by this new enemy weapon platform. The Triad Fighter was the Action Force response to the Robo-Skull, and both of these toys were masterfully designed by Bob Breakin. Bob drew several conceptual sketches for the Triad Fighter, and one of his main focuses while developing this toy was to design a vehicle that would encourage the use of more than one action figure, which led to him having thoughts of a mothership with 2 smaller daughter pods, which were eventually renamed as wingships. Just like the Cosmic Cruiser, the Triad Fighter is also piloted by Moon Dancer, and each wingship features removable thrusters and a side-mounted laser weapon. On the wingships, the clear cockpit canopies are not hatched, instead they are completely removable and easily lost, making this toy difficult to find complete on the secondary market. The mothership, however, does feature a hinged canopy, as well as rotating wings, so that once the wingships are deployed, the mothership can fly through the Earth's atmosphere in a more aerodynamic fashion. Overall, I believe this is a wonderfully designed toy with immense play value, and what child didn't want to get 3 vehicles for the price of 1? When Bob was sketching designs for the Triad Fighter, he was also drawing concepts for another Space Force vehicle. This photograph shows the prototype for the Cosmic Troop Transport, which was conceptualised by Bob Breakin, but further developed by model maker Kevin Heath. But the most significant model in this image is the prototype for the proposed female space officer. I'm only speculating when I say that Bob may have been inspired by the Alien movie directed by Ridley Scott, because this image does give off that vibe. The Cosmic Troop Transport is very alien-esque, and the prototype female space officer is, in my opinion, the first possible attempt at making an action figure of Ellen Ripley, although Bob states that when he was designing this figure, he was actually inspired by Valentina Tereshkova, the first woman to have flown in space. Now, before we move on to the final figure in the range, let's take a moment to talk about the Space Force Battle Gear set. I have neglected to mention these sets in previous episodes, but it should be noted that every Action Force team was afforded a Battle Gear set, and the Space Force was no exception. This set gave children the opportunity to equip their Space Force troops with additional weapons and gear, not offered with the basic carded figures. This set included blue versions of many Hasbro designed weapons, such as Gung-Ho's grenade launcher and Destro's laser pistol. The final character in the range was also designed by Palitoy legend Bob Breakin, and that figure is the Space Engineer. This is one of the best designed figures in the entire Action Force range, Space Force or otherwise, and an early prototype for the Space Engineer can also be seen in the photo depicting the Cosmic Troop Transporter. The Space Engineer wears a spacewalk styled suit moulded in yellow plastic with grey and blue accents. The figure comes with a raisable blue translucent visor and has a space tool moulded into his right hand. According to Action Force lore, the Space Engineer lost his left hand performing a heroic deed in the depths of space. In time, Action Force doctors were able to manufacture a computerized hand to give him greater strength and dexterity. This left hand has two different attachments, including a robotic claw and an atmospheric welding tool, which can be stored on his back. Both of these attachments require the use of a command cable, which runs from the hand to the back of the Space Engineer's life support system. A secondary command cable functions like an umbilical cord and connects the Space Engineer to the Triad Fighter so that he can carry out much needed repairs in the hostile environment of the upper atmosphere. By the end of 1984, the Palitoy design department had closed up shop, so no new Action Force products were developed for 1985. The decision to close the Palitoy design department was made by the General Mills Toy Group in New York, who wanted to centralise its European operations in order to cater for its pursuit of global branding. The knock-on effect of this decision was that Action Force teams and the Red Shadows were disbanded, and the majority of the Action Force toy line was replaced with repackaged G.I. Joe product, with a few exceptions, such as the Robo-Skull, the Z-Force ATC, the Q-Force line, and the Space Force's Triad Fighter. The 1985 release of the Triad Fighter was supplied with different stickers, and this late issue version of the toy is very rare and quite costly to acquire today, which is why I don't own one, with these images having been very kindly provided by Action Force collector Robin Fawkes. Interestingly, the Moondancer action figure supplied with the 1985 version of the Triad Fighter is in fact an extremely rare repaint of the G.I. Joe short fuse figure, complete with a recoloured mortar accessory. Although the Space Force did rely heavily on recoloured action figures, the adapted vehicles were unique enough to make them genuinely worthy additions to the Action Force range. And while the most popular Action Force teams will always be the Z-Force and the SAS, the Space Force deserves a lot of credit for being the only team that was truly prepared to take on the fearsome Robo-Skull. The Space Force also appealed to children whose taste did not solely revolve around military-themed toys, with this team seamlessly mixing in with the Star Wars toy line, providing fans of both franchises with multiple options for background characters and vehicles in each other's universe. In my opinion, the Cosmic Cruiser, the Satellite Defense and the cast of Space Force characters are great toys, but the Triad Fighter with its futuristic appearance and immense play value, and the Space Engineer with his creative design aesthetic made for two truly unique and memorable toys that help raise the Action Force brand up to the legendary status that it holds today. So it is testament to Bob Breakin's design skills and imagination that the two highlights in this team are the Triad Fighter and the Space Engineer, both of which are his creations. Although I must say that Bob would never want to take full credit for these, as many other members of the design department played a part in the development of these toys. Particularly Kevin Heath, the model maker who brought Bob's design sketches to life, and Bob likes to think that if the Palitoy design department had not have been closed in 1984, Kevin's model for the Cosmic Troop Transporter may have been developed into a toy for the 1985 Action Force range. And who knows where else they could have taken the Action Force Space Force under different circumstances. While the Space Force is one of the smaller teams, it's still made for a fun and exciting range of toys. And we really hope you enjoyed this video because we had a lot of fun making it. Now which team will appear in part 4? Well, stay tuned to Analog Toys to find out.